So NFL free agency was fun. It was a great year to be a tackle and a bad year to be a Bengal not named Burrow, Chase, or Higgins. For my New York Jets, I feel like Justin Fields is an upside guy on a reasonable contract who could have a really nice year. Make sure to clip that for when we go 5 and 12 with him under center. Now, with most of the big names snapped up, mainstream attention turns to the draft. Still, I want to stay on free agency for a sec. Unlike the NBA, NFL free agency has all these convoluted rules, from the franchise tag to compensatory picks to the Byzantine salary cap. It's a lot more to keep track of compared to basketball, where you sign a guy to his max extension and just hope he doesn't request a trade before it even kicks in. So how do we get here? Everyone knows that the owners take the NFLPA to school during every CBA negotiation. It's not their fault. These players have short careers with limited windows to secure generational money. That gives them little negotiating room when contract talks come around. That's why the vast majority of players still don't have guaranteed money. So how did they even get the right to become free agents and negotiate their own pay? In short, where does free agency come from? You might think that it's a stupid question. When a player's contract is up, they can go to other teams and try and hammer out a new deal. But that hasn't always been the case. For most of sports history, American sports have had a reserve clause. Basically, teams reserve the exclusive right to sign their players. Even when they were out of contract, players could only sign with their former club. The only way they could move would be via trade. This is part of why salaries in those days were so much lower compared to today. It's not just that revenues were lower. Our modern environment of agents and competing interests and the whole media that surrounds them just didn't exist. You can't really have a market when there's only one buyer. As mentioned before, Ja'Marr Chase recently signed a massive extension, making him the highest paid non-quarterback in football. He wouldn't have been able to demand that kind of money without other receivers setting a benchmark for his own salary. So how do we get here? Well, a lot of time spent picketing and spent in court. It doesn't come up much anymore, but the NFL was pretty strike happy for a while there. In 1968, 1970, 1974, 1982, and 1987, the NFLPA voted to go on strike. One of the best videos on this site is John Boy's look at the 1987 strike from the perspective of the Philadelphia Eagles and quarterback Randall Cunningham. These were guys fighting for better working conditions and greater autonomy. Because of some shady backroom deals from management, they were ultimately unsuccessful. Still, their fight never died, and future generations of NFL players can thank Cunningham and his teammates for the trail they blazed. So what was this all about? Among the reasons for the strikes were disputes over the reserve system. Every year they tried and failed to eliminate first the Rozelle Rule and Plan B free agency that followed. The Rozelle Rule, named for former Commissioner Pete Rozelle, compensated teams for departing players. Basically, if one of your guys left, his new team would have to turn over a selection of draft picks determined by the Commissioner. Plan B free agency gave teams the right to match any offer shown to one of 37 protected players with expired contracts. Both of these policies create the same effect. They disincentivized teams from signing new players and shrank the market for their services. Then in 1993, everything changed. During the 1987 NFL strike, the case eventually made its way to the courts. After years of back and forth between players and owners, in 1993, the league and NFLPA signed a new CBA that finally granted players free agency in exchange for a salary cap. And that contract gave us the modern NFL. It's when the league fully established itself as America's game. The mid-90s also saw a crippling baseball strike, and the game hasn't recovered since, while football has taken off. That CBA was extended until 2011, and while minor changes have been made since, it is still the general law of the land that has allowed the NFL to become the titan we know today. So how have things changed in the 32 years since? Nowadays, NFL teams have the exclusive tag and the non-exclusive tag. The former can be used on any player with an expiring deal. It takes the player off the market and signs them to a fully guaranteed one-year deal, paying the average of the top 5 players at their position, or a 20% bump of their current pay, whichever is higher. The non-exclusive tag, which is a lot less common, is the same but lets players look for a new deal outside in the market that their team has the right to match. If the player does leave, his old team is given 2 first-round picks in compensation. You might remember this is what happened with Lamar Jackson a couple years ago. He later signed a new deal with the Ravens. The tag's controversial because of how it tampers with the market and impedes player power. Running backs are famously one of the worst paid positions in football. They're these super cool guys you'd put on a poster that make significantly less than their skill position teammates. Part of that's the franchise tag. If all the top running backs are tagged, the market stays frozen. And I don't blame front offices. Paying a running back big money is one of the easiest ways to burn cap room and lose your job. And that's why I think it matters to study how we got here and how the CBA works. The smartest teams know how to work around the angles to get the most out of the limitations put on them. Need an example? Just look at the Eagles. Last season, they signed former first-round pick Mekhi Becton to a one-year deal after a few underwhelming seasons as a Jet. After moving to guard, he became a starter, a Super Bowl champion, and he just secured a big deal with the Chargers. Losing him gave the Eagles a compensatory pick in this year's draft. What are those? Well, compensatory picks are another way that the league kind of discourages free agency. Basically, if you have more players leave as free agents than you sign, your team can pick up to 4 compensatory picks in rounds 3 through 7. From a salary cap perspective, they're great since it means replacing what would have been an expensive, aging player with a young, cheap rookie. That was New England's bread and butter last decade, and it's Philly's today. So to recap, the Eagles bought low on a player, built him up, let him walk when the money wasn't right, and now have another asset that can go towards finding a successor on a cheap mid-round rookie salary. That move won't grab headlines. Most people will want to talk about signing Saquon off a division rival for nothing, or finding Hurts in the second round. Fewer will want to talk about picking up a day 3 pick from a formula most can't even comprehend. Still, it's these under-the-radar moves with players like Becton that allowed Eagles GM Howie Roseman to build an all-star team that beat the evil empire in the Super Bowl. So that's the story. In a lot of ways, the franchise tag, the salary cap, and compensatory picks all exist to suppress the free agency we already have and recreate elements of the Rozelle Rule era of the NFL. I know it's hard to be sympathetic. These guys are millionaires the moment they step through the door. Still, understanding how we got here is what all the best teams do. The Eagles turned one season of Mekhi Becton into a Super Bowl and a draft pick. That's why they're the Eagles. The Jets turned 3 seasons of Mekhi Becton into 3 losing seasons. And that's why we're the Jets.